Hello everybody. Welcome to today's Daily Transitioning with me, Julien Wells. I was on the Missy Hill show today, and we talked about the law of allowing. And I wanted to continue on that theme. I know I've already done a blog on it, but I feel like that was just the beginning because there's so much to allowing that's literally where we hiccup. That is literally the process we're to learn right now. We understand the law of attraction, but now it's time to put into perspective how to allow ourselves to attract, so to speak. So it's another facet of attracting. The basic rules are there, but the underlying way in which we do it is very individual, and it can't be taught. It's because all of us go about allowing in different ways and different processes. So I'm going to try to sort of coalesce it into different ways that we allow. And generally, what I'm talking about when we're allowing is based on your alignment after you've stated what you're wanting to attract. Now, I've already talked about how attraction is simply the desire to adjust your perspective on your reality, because there's infinite perspectives and there's infinite timelines in which you perceive in all the different ways that you can a subject, kind of like getting a 360-degree view of something. When you're only holding one at a time, you want to engage in multiple perspectives to fully understand it. And that's why we tend to have the same experience over and over and over again, only slightly different at a slight different period of time with maybe slightly different people or slightly different details. It gives us more of a three-dimensional view of what we're experiencing or what we're perceiving of an experience that we're trying to learn from. It's like listening to the moral of a story told through many different stories that shares the same moral of the story, so to speak. So you get kind of like the same sort of end result, but more understood, so to speak. It's like why we have two eyes. The bifocal vision gives us greater perspective than just an individual perspective, an individual singular point of view. Now, getting back to the different ways that we allow, you'll note that it's based a lot on kind of like the way that we choose, which is the mood in which we make a choice, because that carries on into, what we're actually expecting. It taints and actually is a representation of what I'm expecting. So what I'm getting at is that there are different approaches to attracting that offer different expectations in the allowing. Like, for instance, when you need something, it feels different than when you invite something, right? Fundamentally, you're doing the same thing, and many people might argue that you get the same result, but actually no. What actually comes as in the difference is how you're going to allow it to occur, and for what reason are you attracting it in the first place. So if you're aware of that, then you'll know that and in the way that you're asking, literally within that process, it describes exactly the limitations for you actually getting to experience it. So when you demand something from someone, of course, you're speaking from a profound position of lack. And that position of lack can be observed as, I demand that you do this because I will settle for nothing less, which is to say, you will accept no alternate choices. You expect it to be in only a very finite result and a very specific end result. Therefore, not opening yourself up to the multiple ways in which you can have a result that is probably more true with your alignment. It's not that you actually demand a specific way to occur, but that you expect it can only occur in one particular way, and that you request that it come through a way that you're already familiar. So if it comes through the way that you're already familiar, then you're not really expanding your knowledge on anything. You're really just sort of repeating the past, or repeating something you've already seen, and not experiencing fundamentally from a brand new perspective, giving yourself a bifocal understanding. So to demand is really showing that you are in a position that is not seeing that you're literally narrowing your experience by or the result, therefore making it less believable, because belief comes into play a lot of the time when it comes to how realistic is that. Well, you'll feel it's very realistic if it's very probable. And if you narrow your choices and you narrow the way in which it comes to you, well, then you're reducing the perceivable probability. And so you're less energetically attracting that, so to speak, when you're intending it. There's also not demanding, but there's needing. You say, I need this, or I need for this to work out. I need the money to pay for my rent. I need you to look at me when I'm talking to you. I need. And when you say I need, what you're really also saying is that you've only identified one aspect of the experience that you're trying to attract. So when you're looking to attract money for rent, you're doing it, from a position where, well, you wouldn't ask for that if you didn't need it, right? So by facing the truth of what your need is, you can identify more clearly what might be a more useful way of phrasing it, or identifying what you're really wanting to do. So instead of saying, I need it, even though, yes, you do need it according to the way you see it, you can rephrase something like, you need money for rent, and turn it into something like, I would like to continue enjoying the space that I'm living in, and I would like to, live it for much longer without any sort of restrictions or concerns about feeling like I don't deserve it, right? In the sense that I'm not offering money energy to it. So I'd like to feel that my rent is more or less going to find ways of paying itself if needed. If needed is something I don't even need to identify. It's literally, I would prefer to have it take care of itself. And so you don't call it a need if you're not playing into the approach that says exactly what you're uncomfortable with. Now, that's also identifying with pivoting a subject. That comes down to when you don't want to say something and describe what's wrong. You'd prefer to describe the right, which is the opposite of the wrong. So that's one way to attract. But if you really are confident in knowing that you truly are the center of your reality, you'll note that you can even say, I don't want this, I don't want this, and I don't want this, without attracting exactly what you don't want. I know the secret says that that's the case, but when your higher being gets the gist of the way that you're communicating, you don't have to use the I don't. Don't is a word that is allowed to be used in context. You're allowed to use the word don't just as much as you're allowed to use any word in the vocabulary and not suffer from its negative polarity potential. Everything has a potential to be both positive and negative. And as long as you're not identifying not, even subconsciously, as an issue with the way that you communicate, then it simply won't be a problem. Your higher being will know the message. Your higher being isn't stupid either. What is relatively unforgiving is your emotions. So when you feel good saying, I don't want this, and on the flip side after saying that, you feel that, yeah, that's right, I don't want that, and that makes me feel good to identify it, then you know that you're doing all right with that, and that your alignment is properly spoken. Now, there's also the next level beyond saying need and saying, I want something, and that's ideal too to be used. We can use I want for just about everything. It's a simple format for specifying your desire. And this is probably where most people are. They're writing their lists of things that they want. They're writing their Christmas lists, and they're basically preparing how they wish to see things come into being for themselves. Now, as much as I can say there's nothing wrong with that, I can say there are ways to improve the approach. And what you can do when attracting to support the allowing is to actually look at what you want and identify what's actually at the heart of what you want. Try to go into a broader perspective of what you want. So when you say, I want a Barbie, is it that you really want a specific Barbie, or do you want a doll, or do you want sort of like that kind of playmate that sometimes a doll can be? Or is it that you actually are looking at different opportunities for enjoying sort of like the imaginary space that the doll gets you to have? So can you enjoy doll-like activities without a Barbie, for instance? Can you find ways to enjoy having a Barbie if it wasn't new? Now, you don't have to ask yourself all these questions, but sometimes you can basically ponder what is in the realm of what you're looking for. Like, for instance, if I say I want a Ferrari, that sounds like fun and that sounds amazing. I may not even care what year or make it is, as long as it's a Ferrari and it's red. I mean, I believe they're all red. But anyways, the point is, Ferrari is nice in general. So be as general as it is comfortable for you. And that way your want can be broader and can encompass multiple options, and perhaps even the best option that you hadn't even perceived of yet. There may be a doll you've never seen before that may not be a Barbie brand, but may actually be more enjoyable than what a Barbie could have brought you. So be open to and flexible to what you're really asking for. And the next tier up from wanting, in my opinion, is instead of declaring and putting out a projection so much that comes out like an intention of sort of like an intense form of desire, you can do something that comes into even more free will for the universe to allow. And this one also works really well when speaking with other people and wanting to attract experiences with someone else in conversation. And that's to use different formats of the word invite. I invite you to this. I wish to share something with you. I wish to experience this, please. And you can use different forms of invitation through many different ways of sharing an invitation. There's many different ways socially to do that, and there's many different ways mentally to invite. Now, you think that just saying that you need or you want is enough of invitation. But an invitation, what comes with an invitation is sort of like saying, come sit next to me over here. I've prepared a space for you if you want to join me. I will not force you to join me. I will allow you to join me at just the right time where you're comfortable. And if it's you in front of me that is not what is in alignment with me, well then I'll keep this space open right here next to me for exactly what my higher being really is looking for. And I hold no expectations. I offer you your free will to basically, approach me in the way that I'm offering or not. I even offer an opening for you to suggest an improvement on perhaps what I'm looking at. I offer you the space to sort of like counter invite and invite me, knowing what I'm interested in. You may have an even greater suggestion. So when we are choosing to attract a reality, what can often help the allowing is to actually approach it a bit more like an invitation. I invite this experience. I know fully well that I'm allowed to have this experience, but I'm also holding it in the space so that it can come to me in the most fruitful way possible, because you never know really what you're going to get until you're there in the moment where everything is perfect. And I know everyone has had experience like this where just these things seem so perfect. And it wasn't that you could even plan it that way, but the space of allowing it to basically have its qualities manifest in an unforeseen way, that's very useful for allowing. Allowing is that part of us that knows fundamentally that the conscious mind, doesn't control anything. It's only perceiving, and that the higher mind, the one that is much more an organizer of our existence and an organizer of helping us attract that which we're looking for, and it attracts in invisible ways. Most of the time we're not even observing the subtleties of what's occurring, because oftentimes that muddies it up. If you see how it's coming, you might want to, if you see and you go and you experience the cook at work, you may want to get your fingers wet and start helping out, and without being a professional, you might sort of muck it up too. So oftentimes we don't necessarily see how it comes to us. We can go through the process of seeing how it works, but most of the time it'll require sort of a belief in the magical ways of the higher being and how it works, and things that are kind of beyond our perception on everyday matters generally. So the idea is to sort of like leave it up to God, which is a part of ourselves that knows best, and that is our higher self, and basically give the opportunity for it to do its job, is for it to do its part in your life, which is to bring you and pre-plan the experiences to give you a chance to look it around. Because honestly, it's the higher being's game. Although you are the chooser of your experience through your conscious thought, what you're really doing is you're actually downloading and accessing that part of you that is your higher self, your broader self. The broader self doesn't always give you the reason why it's determined that something is a fruitful experience or not. So don't worry about what the higher being's doing. If you really want to be concerned and discuss with the higher being on what its plans are, well then meditation is probably the fastest way that you begin to build a connection with it. So meditate, and in that proper state of mind without distractions, you can have a better line of communication with it if you're concerned or worried about what exactly is in your path. And you don't have to be worried, because honestly, everything you love, everything that you adore in life, that's the higher being. That higher being is what you're trying to align with. Essentially, when you're following through in the intentions towards the experience and enjoying in perspective the way that the higher being is enjoying, then that means you're in alignment with your higher being. So it's very hard to be at odds with it. And sometimes we do challenge ourselves, and these challenges are simply temporary experiences to test just how far we can pull the bowstring back before we can let it loose forward into wonderful experience. Yes, we do choose struggling and experiences that can be seeming difficult, but we only do those because we want a really great release from the after effect. And as long as you recognize that, your experiences won't haunt you any longer, and you can make sense of them and see them only as an experience to be perceived. And if you give your chance to sort of like raise your awareness and try to see the bigger picture, you'll find that you can basically cultivate a lot on the subject rather than being mired in the individual dense experience itself. So I think I've been rambling for quite a while at this point, so I'm going to wrap up. I wanted to thank, today's video blog was brought to you and forward by Matthew Ronan, and I want to thank you for sponsoring this one. And I hope everybody enjoyed this, and I'll see you again soon, hopefully tomorrow. I think we have a really good subject for tomorrow. And of course, if you have any questions, post them in the comments. And of course, you can keep up to date with me on Facebook or at julianwells.com. And if you want to have a conversation with me directly, remember that I do sessions at jwsessions.simplybook.me. And I will see you soon. Love you all. Good night.